Welcome back to another episode of Projecting Grandeur. I am your host, Ron Dichter. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for being part of our growing community. Today, I want to talk about ceilings and I want to talk about limitations that we have put on ourselves. And I got thinking about it this morning. I was at the gym and I was with my normal 4 a.m. workout buddies, and there was a new person who I didn't know that was at the gym with us this morning. And like any good 4 a.m. workouter, you want to know who in their right mind is getting up at the same time. And so I started chatting with him. And turned out he is a business owner in the insurance industry and has a agency that is in town. And he said it's going really well. He's got 15 or so people that work in his office, and he's kind of hit a cap in the business, and is kind of thinking that the business is no longer capable of growing past where he's at. Well, naturally, that piqued my interest. And as we started chatting throughout our various workouts and kind of crossing paths in the gym, I asked him more and more questions. And I said to him, I said, well, the business itself, is there no more room for it to grow, or is the limitation more around your surroundings? And he's like, well, a little bit of both. And I said, okay, tell me more. And so he told me that he has an office that has a finite amount of square footage. And with his 15 people that he has in there now, that he doesn't have any more room to grow. I said, okay. And then he said, additionally, while there is a lot of market that he can go after, he doesn't know that he is capable of being able to manage, more than what he's got going on right now. And I just kind of let that sit in. And I said, okay, well, if you don't mind, let me just ask you some questions. And he said, sure. I said, well, is there more space available either in your current building or in a building near you that you could take on? He's like, sure, there's always more space. I said, okay. I said, if you had more space, could you fill it up? Meaning, could you hire quality people that, could ultimately join your team? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I turn people away at this point. I said, okay. I said, so if you had more people, why do you think you're not able or capable of being able to run a larger team? And he's like, I have a hard time letting go. And, there's just too many people, for me to be able to manage if I get above 15. And I said, so do these 15 people all report to you directly? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, well, that is going to be a challenge to scale. And I said, so it sounds like to me that the ceiling that you've put on yourself, like these limitations that you've told me you're capable of, are really self-induced. And, maybe with some proper training, guidance, or just a shift in mindset, you actually might be able to break through this ceiling and get to that next level. And he had some hesitation, but he's like, maybe. And I could tell he was very uncomfortable about the thought of relinquishing some of his day-to-day responsibility and potentially bringing somebody else on to help grow the business. And so then I told him a story. I told him about a couple of my businesses that I scaled, and I had the same exact, conundrum. I'm very much type A. I have a really hard time letting go of control. But if you're going to grow, you can't do it all on your own, right? Everybody is human. Everybody has a finite amount of time and effort and, usable hours they have in a day. And if you're not willing to expand that and hire people that you can ultimately groom and train into, your right and left hand, and maybe even further than that, you will struggle. And so we just kind of talked through this philosophically. And I think what had happened over time is that, he had been burned by some people who he brought on that he had high hopes could be trained and could be groomed into a leadership role, and disappointed him. And so rather than thinking this is either a process in training problem or a person problem, he decided that this is just a him problem and that he's not capable of being able to groom and scale and grow the business, which is incorrect. So I bring up this topic as today is these ceilings that we put on ourselves, these caps on what we think we are capable of doing is nothing more than a artificial creation, and it's not real, right? There's always something higher and bigger and better, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the skill set that you have today is going to naturally allow you to, go up a level or break through that ceiling. And so we have to be, self-aware of what our limitations are. We have to be, able to admit where we have gaps in our own skill set, and then seek someone, whether it be a mentor, whether it be, a training, whether it be just advice, from someone who's been there before and has helped, kind of break through a ceiling that they're themselves trying to break through. And so I offered up my help, said, look, I've been in your situation before. I've had businesses where I had these, these gaps that I didn't know how to do. And somebody, I was fortunate enough, pulled me aside and showed me some of the things that they did. And then I applied that to my own business and was able to break through. And so I'm actually going to lunch with him today and just going to give him my 2 cents. And I do it because, again, I want him to be successful. He seemed like a really good person. And hey, he works out at 4 a.m. So he's already speaking my language. But again, the whole point of today's show is really about understanding where your ceilings are, understanding where your limitations are, and knowing what it is that's preventing you from breaking through, and knowing how to reach out and get help from mentors, coaches, anybody that you think you trust has been there before and can help you break through so that you can get to that next level. And again, sometimes it's hard. You have to eat a little bit of humble pie to admit that maybe you are the problem. And that doesn't mean that you can't overcome it. It's not insurmountable. It's just recognizing that you are the problem. And if you want to go up to a higher floor, break through that ceiling to that next level, you have to find somebody who's already living in that level and help get their advice to get through. Anyway, that's it for the day. It just happened to be a story that was top of mind since it happened this morning at the gym, and hope you can find what your ceiling is, how to break through it, and seek help when you need it. Have a great day. I'm Ron Dichter. This is Projecting Grandeur, and don't forget to share it with a friend. Have a good one, everyone.